Hello everyone and welcome back to Amity Bloom. My name is Nazi and today I'm going to be sharing a couple of process videos in my Quirky House Christmas December notebook. I am starting off my journaling process by flipping through the little mini booklet that I made. I just used my scraps that I had lying around from my big journal, or my medium-sized journal I should say, and I used them to fill up my little notebook. So starting the first page, it's going to be the 1st of December, and even though I didn't do December daily exactly, I am going to be decorating the pages by numerical order. And I am using some little cards, some ephemera cards that I grabbed from the Merry Days Advent calendar. They are absolutely darling, but I am using a couple of them just for the numbers and the rest of them for the pictures, since they do have lovely illustrations. I cut a little scrap piece of some fabric washi. You can find these in my Etsy shop. And I am placing the little number right on top of the washi just to add some contrast. And I am also cutting a little scrap piece from the gift bag. The gift bag that I'm using right now is just covered with stamps, and each stamp or postage stamp has a really nice illustration. I am then using a tag that I already have for my collection, and I'm using it as a stencil to cut around it to create my own tag from some scraps of paper that I had left over. And you'll notice that I rely a lot on the beautiful illustrations of Christmas packaging, wrapping paper, Christmas cards, because they're already there and available for us. And what perfect time than the Christmas season to use them in our journals. So here I made the fastest tag in the world, and then I put the little postage stamp right beside it, and I was contemplating putting it on the tag, but I decided to keep them separate. So moving on, I am using some ledger to cover up the book pages. This is a question that I get all the time. How do you use book pages in journals? And you can either go two ways. You can use them as collage, like a collage background, where you can then put different papers on top of them, or cover it completely and use it as writing space. You can even put paint over it. There's so many ways. But I love using the book paper as a background. It adds a lot of dimension. And if you don't have book paper, vintage book pages readily available, then you can do what I'm doing here, which is using a little scrap piece of some script paper. You can print it out from the computer, or if you have vintage papers, that makes it even better. And I'm using it to create a little text spot. And the reason why I'm turning it into a tuck spot and not just gluing it directly onto the page is because I knew I wouldn't be able to journal or write on top of that decorative paper. So I decided to create a little text spot so I can put my journaling inside of the pocket. And here I decided to make a last minute little tab, staple it right on top, and I'm filling it up with some ephemera pieces from a Christmas scrapbooking collection. And I love incorporating vintage papers with my personal ephemera, which will come later when I do the actual journaling and documenting, and little scrapbooking ephemera pieces and papers. That is what I started off with in the beginning, was with scrapbook papers and scrapbooking die cuts and stickers. And then as I developed my style and I found out that I love incorporating vintage items but still using a modern twist with them. Not just making everything completely grungy, or sometimes I like to go the full mile and grunge it out completely, so it all depends. And on the third day, as you can see me here, covering up the pages with writing paper and then using my scraps to create another little tab. So moving on to the fourth day, I am finally using the full card piece with the number and the illustration. Previous to that, I've just been cutting off the numbers and saving the designs. But I wanted to switch it up a little bit, and I was thinking that page or that combo on that spread was so white and so bare. I knew I needed to add color, and I knew I needed to add some type of text spot. Since I was going to be writing and journaling a lot in this little notebook, I needed to leave myself enough space to write and to journal, but at the same time add some elements where there's pockets and belly bands and tuck spots where I can add further journaling or put my pictures on or my personal ephemera from the holiday season. And I'm using some book page, one of my favorite things to use in my journals, as a little decorative element at the very top part of the house for my paper house. And on this page, on the 5th day, I'm using some music paper, a scrap piece of wallpaper. The tiniest scrap sometimes makes the world of a difference, and you'll see here. By adding that little tiny blue wallpaper scrap, it brings in the blue colors that you see on the other page, and it turns just a boring white page into something more different, and it emphasizes the 5. So moving on, this was a couple days after. I am working on spread number 9, so the 9th day of December. That 6 kind of looks like a 9, or it looks like a 6. And I'm using some wrapping paper, that beautiful music wrapping paper, and I'm gluing it onto the Christmas card that I received. And the other page was a little bit too yellow for my liking, so I went through my paper scraps, and this was actually a paper that I cut out from the Flow magazine. I am really enjoying the Flow magazine right now because there's some matte pages that you can journal on, and the colors are really up my alley. Not too saturated, but yet perfect tones of pastels and colors that I love. And I'm gluing the entire page onto my journaling spread. And I really liked the quote that it had, or the phrase, "Wake up to a new world," because on the 9th day of December, we actually went to see the new Harry Potter, or I should say, the new Fantastic Beasts movie. And it's all about this magical world, so I think it really went well. So here, instead of cutting off the little scrap piece on the side, I decided to fold it in to make a little text spot, an extra text spot, since I wouldn't be able and I didn't want to journal over the beautiful tree paper. I knew that I needed to include some journaling in the text spot. Moving on, here is another blank page. It's the inside of the card, and I used some music paper from my scraps to cover it up completely. And the same thing that I experienced with the other page, I had a little piece of some scrap paper that was just dangling off, and I could either cut it, glue it down, or turn it into a tuck spot. So you'll see the reoccurring pattern is that I turn pretty much everything into a tuck spot or a pocket because I needed to make the most of the small space that I had, because I knew I needed to do a lot of journaling and I had lots of little bits and pieces from the holiday season. So this was the 10th day of December, and I decided to keep the little Santa image. He was so cute, the little Santa Claus with his glasses. And I had this frame from a different scrapbooking ephemera pack, and it fit perfectly. And this page was actually dedicated to me purchasing some really cute little pieces from artisans online. I love supporting small Etsy shops, small businesses that are handmade, and this was dedicated to that. So for Christmas, I decided to purchase some beautiful pins, enamel pins, from some illustrators and some watercoloring cards. Really beautiful things that I can include in my journaling. Some stickers from some handmade artists, and I wanted to dedicate the spread to them, especially because they're business cards. I mean, just look at this. They wrote a little letter to me, and they made it part of their packaging, and they gave me a cute little sticker, and they wrote out my name. It was just so lovely. That's something that I love about buying handmade and from a small shop. The personalization that goes into your items and their creations when they're packaged, it's just so lovely, and you can't get that. You can't get that from big stores. So I had a lot of fun creating this little spread for the pre-decorating before I went into journal. It brought me so much joy, like the little ornament says, and this little sticker was one of my favorites, and I knew it needed to have its own shine and its own light right in the corner. So on that little vellum pocket where the business cards came in, I pulled out some phrases. What I like to do and what I recommend is when you have a magazine, a book, look for phrases that mean something to you. Cut them out, save them, and put them aside for when you need to find a phrase or a quote. You can look through your little bin or your little box of phrases, and you can pull out the ones that best match up with the memory you're trying to document. And in this case, this phrase that said a community of independent artists matched perfectly with what I wanted to document on my journaling spread. And I cut it up into 3 sections since it was very long and awkwardly long, and I decided to glue it right on top of the pocket. Now, these 2 tags and the stamp that I pulled out, I actually got from the thrift store. It was a little package of tags and stamps that were completely unopened and unused, and they fit perfectly into my little journal. So I decided to use them for some extra journaling space, and I grabbed the stamp that said to and from. I really enjoyed the font, and it stamped perfectly, no issues whatsoever. And that's where I'm going to journal about the little gifts that I bought myself. So then on the next page, on day 11, I really had nothing to journal about because I was working really hard on finishing up my fabric bundles. However, that doesn't mean that I can't journal on those pages even if I didn't have any special or exciting memories. So what I decided to do was cut up the little elements, some of the papers. That is a piece of a little ribbon from the Jolly Christmas bundle. This little scrap piece of paper was from my little booklet, and it gave it good contrast to the page because now we're bringing in the green with the red and it's looking a lot more Christmassy. And that's the same paper that I used for one of the tabs for my honeycomb journal. And then on the other page, I ended up just cutting up a little scrap piece of my ledger and gluing it on top of the book page and calling that a finished spread. So I truly hope that you guys enjoyed seeing my process, and my super quick process, might I say, for my Christmas house journal. I hope you enjoyed, and until next time, I hope that you guys have a lovely day full of peace and love. Bye-bye.